and like making music is part of a journey, and it's not always about the final destination that you get to.
Yeah, that's a great lesson. And might have what to do with what we're going to talk about down the line, but I want to finish your story before we get to that. But I love that. Yeah, that's a great takeaway. Wait, so as you were, so now I'm curious about your transition. You're working with Adam Watts. You're in college. You're in LA. How do you meet Mark Eckert, and how does he bring you under his wing?
Yeah. Okay, so that's the second half of my story. So this is all like foundational stuff that we've gone through right now. After graduating from college, I stepped into a full-time job as a music director and lighting director at a large church in Southern California. I was there for about a year and 2 months or something. Really foundational time. I know I've said the word foundational so many times in this podcast. It's not gonna sound like a word anymore by the end of this.
It's going to be embedded in the title of this episode.
Foundations. Oh God. Yeah. Started working for a church, really kind of honed my skills there. I had a lot of room to do my job, but also do extra stuff on the side that like was for my job, but also helped me develop my skills as a music producer, as an engineer, just kind of generally as a creative. I think working in an environment where there were big, grand visions of like, this is the story we want to tell. How do we achieve that in various creative elements, sound, music, lyrics, lighting, story, ambience, was really great, foundational for for me, just in like my developing as a creative. And eventually, like as I worked in that job, as I kind of transitioned and started to navigate my adult life, I came to various conclusions with my own belief structures that made me incompatible with the job, and ended up transitioning out in like June of, would have been 2019, somewhere around there. But before that had happened, I had met this man named Mark Eckert via Instagram. So I was living in LA, or kind of in that area at the time. And I believe Mark at that time was full on like in his producing era. I believe he had an Instagram bot that was just liking posts with certain hashtags. And Ben, I'm going to be completely honest. He liked a video that I had made that I had hashtagged with indie pop or something. I saw his photo at the time, which is, the sideways photo with him, in the green jacket with the beard. And I was like, oh my goodness.
Sure.
Who is this person? That's, a decent profile picture compared to, the like trash, bio photos that most people have on their social medias. And I clicked on his profile and, immediately was like, oh my God, someone with 16.5 thousand followers liked one of my photos. Oh my goodness. At that point, didn't even know that there were bots for that kind of a thing. I just thought that he really liked my content. And so
I probably would have thought the same thing.
Yeah. I started browsing through the stuff that he was making, and it was kind of another one of those instances where I thought to myself, wow, this is a whole other world. I haven't even began to think about like the potentials for like working in this world, for making like indie pop as opposed to like acoustic folk pop or CCM music. And so I immediately hopped on a call with him. I scheduled a call with him. Obviously tried to position myself as more of an expert than I actually was, which I'm sure he saw right through, but decided that it was the right move for me to end up hiring him as just kind of a business coach, consultant, kind of a like furthering education in a practical way after college, where I had a bunch of like just dry information that I had absorbed in my college journey, but had no idea how to like arrange in a
real world
manner.
applications of that stuff.
Yeah,
right?
And so Mark ended up helping me out with that. I hired him around November of 2018, just like a few months after I had finished college. And he kind of stuck with me throughout the whole process of like transitioning out of, a job working for a church into trying to make ends meet by myself. And so I entered this weird, chaotic era where I no longer really had steady income and had to rely on getting gigs. So I ventured out on my own, and I was trying really hard to figure out how to make money producing artists. Long story short, that didn't happen because I didn't understand just how long and involved a process it would be. So in order to make ends meet, I ended up teaching a lot of piano. Ended up doing a lot of session work, so like recorded keys for various artists. Joined a bunch of cover bands, pretty much anywhere that I could get my hands on to play music. So I ended up joining like an 80s rock cover band, a pop cover band. Eventually, get this, I joined a country cover band, and we went and played these like redneck bars all around like rural areas and like the desert areas of California. And let me tell you, I will never perform Tennessee whiskey as an Asian man again in front of a crowd of white girls. That was not my vibe, but it helped me make ends meet. It helped me pay rent. It helped me afford all the in and out that I wanted to eat. And so
that's the that's the base. It's like the ramen for Californians. Is
pretty much
how much can I
yeah. But yeah, on top of that, started kind of contracting for churches, either as a live sound tech or as a keyboard player. Started really kind of pushing into the world of session playing as opposed to, live sound. Because I was
it was like anything you could get your hands on that was music and would pay you money, basically. And
pretty much, yeah.
Because bills are expensive in California, right? Like it's hard to make ends meet out there.
So expensive. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm ever moving back. Yeah. But yeah, just kind of tried making ends meet. I had kept in touch with Adam and kind of honestly hoarded myself out as, just a musician / writer / piano player to any producers that I knew who were making records because I wanted to be in the room. Oh, cool. Like Adam was working with an artist. Hey, do you need a pianist on site? You don't have to pay me. I'm just going to be there, be a fly on the wall. You can use me if you need for this session. Please just let me be in the room, that kind of a thing. Met other session players that were playing, pretty large gigs in the LA area. And same thing, just, hey, is there anything I can help out with? Do you have any opportunities that I could potentially jump on? Full force, went into this era of my life, trying to get my hands on as much stuff as possible, paying people to be in the room, offering services to be in the room, literally just wanted to make connection on connection on connection. And eventually, Adam started seeing me more or less as a colleague, brought me in on some sessions, actually, as a professional. I got paid to lay down synth parts or, do piano parts. How I got my first Netflix cred, which is super cool.
That's great.
So, yeah, I kept doing that, kind of settled into a rhythm where I was making ends meet. Also, putting stuff away for savings, just in case, shit hit the fan. And then the fateful panini of 2020 happened. And I lost half of my students. All of the live gigs that I was doing just disappeared overnight. Church gigs disappeared overnight. And all of a sudden I found myself living off of my savings and my parents' bank account. And I called Mark and basically was I used my last kind of consultation credit with him and basically told him, hey, I've tried to pay you for as long as I can. I am out of money now. I guess this is the end of our professional relationship. And so at that point, Mark pretty much told me that pitch was growing and he needed to bring on some extra help. And so he would continue, kind of consulting me, helping me get my feet on the ground, in the pandemic times. If I would kind of come on and help with some member support, just kind of answering messages, responding to social media comments. And so, of course, I wanted to do that because at that point, I had nothing else to do, right? I was just about to move from Riverside to Anaheim. And aside from, planning a move, packing a lot of boxes, I had a lot of time on my hands. And so I figured, why not, help out with some social media stuff. Ended up just kind of jumping right into it, diving in face first, head first, whatever the phrase is.
I think head first.
Yeah, doing just about everything that I could at that time, which, ended up paying off, obviously. But eventually Mark started paying me on retainer and it became a full-time position. He had another assistant at that time begin to transition out of the company. And so just kind of a wild right place, right time thing. I was able to somehow transition into a job working for Mark remotely while I was still in the LA area. During that time, just kind of, since I couldn't really connect with people in person, tried really hard to connect with people virtually. Kind of went into the whole Facebook artist groups type of a thing and started really leaning into who I was as a person. I ended up making a few posts, getting a lot of like responses back from people. I was basically asking like, hey, where are our LGBT artists in these groups, right? Like, let's come together. I want to hear your stuff. Let's hop on calls. I think I got like 98 comments within the first 12 hours of making one of those posts. And it was something really stupid. Like I was watching some sort of a show on Netflix. I don't remember what it was. And I just was on my phone. I was like, oh, cool. I might as well make this post, just to see what happens. And it got a huge response. And I was like, well, okay, great. So I ended up staying up all night. Basically, like, this is kind of terrible, but I made like an entire Trello board of like, this is this artist. This is the song that they wrote. This is how much I like it. And then like, depending on like where they were, I had different columns of like, have I messaged them? If I messaged them, I would move them to the next column saying like, hey, I've started talking to them. Have we discussed stuff? As soon as like we had talked for about a week, I'd move them to another column, try to get on a call with them. Have we gotten on a call?
Like
once I got on a call.
nerdy CRM vibes.
Oh, total CRM vibes. I met some of my best friends through that. Like some of the people today that I will send all of my shit to and be like, hey, is this actually good or am I just freaking out? I met them through that whole process. Like there was like about 100 artists that like engaged with that post. I think I hopped on calls with 50 of them and I'm still in touch with like 20 of them.
That's amazing.
And like 4 became really, really good friends with me. And so, yeah, basically I took 3 weeks of my life to hop on calls with literally every single artist that I could possibly, or like producer that I could possibly like hop on a call with. I ended up creating a Facebook group specifically for queer artists who are like working within the pop world. The group has since died. No one engages in it anymore. But just kind of from there, started co-writing with some of them, made a lot of really good producer friends. And that was just kind of like this whole community building phase in my life at that point. And I think that honestly is the foundation that I built in order to, that like somehow inadvertently built on accident to more or less start developing like who I was within these circles, right? Oh, cool, Enoch, he works with queer artists or something like that. He's another gay man who, writes songs and stuff. That was kind of what was established at that point, which was really like fuzzy, but over the last year has started to come into focus, which is really cool.
Nice.
The stuff with that 90s kid started taking off around October of last year. Yeah, pretty much a year ago. I flew out to Charlotte to come visit Mark. We were going to work in person for a bit. As soon as I stepped foot off the plane, I realized that Charlotte was a city where I could think. There wasn't a lot of noise going on everywhere. After the trip, decided to move here, and I moved here last March.
Wow.
So, yeah, just kind of crazy. Started doing like remix productions near the end of last year. I had started off 2020 working with a few artists, one of which ended up being really toxic and ended up kind of just pushing me out of the world of music production for a little bit to reset. And as I entered back in, I started to position myself as a remix producer because I just really didn't want to deal with putting out the like main version of a song for an artist. I wanted more creative freedom. I wanted a little more say in like where a song was headed. And so I started, instead of trying to focus on starting artists who may or may not have done a production before, instead of focusing on them, I started working towards making relationships, building relationships with artists that are somewhat established, but not like really famous, but like who have done songs before, who have, 4 to 5 releases, and then like working on alternate versions of their songs for them, kind of positioning myself as an alternate.
I didn't know that was
creator.
like a thing to position yourself as like a remix producer.
I didn't
That's
either.
cool.
And it's cool because I don't have to feel guilty about poaching artists from other producers. And
Right.
also I can create whatever the fuck I want. Like, I don't really have to
I was
stick
actually
to
going to
one
ask you
specific
this
genre.
question is like, what's the mindset between like, I guess you've kind of answered it already, between like doing a remix production versus doing an actual production. Like what's the difference? Like, it's just like, let's just go to town on this. Let's just do whatever I feel like doing, right? Like that's the main difference.
Pretty much. I would say the
Vocals are already there, tuned.
Mm-hmm.
You speed them up a bit.
I don't have to work on vocals. I don't have to tune them.
Yeah.
My job is basically to destroy whatever they give me and put it back together in pieces, which is really cool. And I think I sent you a song that I did just that on. So we can take a listen
Well,
to that
we'll get
later.
that. We'll get into that in the sauce segment for sure.
Awesome.
You know, you said something that you kind of just breezed over, but I thought was like super cool. It was like, you know,